All right, we are back. Hope everybody had a nice break. And we are now on to item number 4C. This is electric vehicle service equipment policies for county-owned buildings. And we have both resilience and facilities with us. Take it away.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, and good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. It's Sami Ajala, Director of Facilities Development and Operations. With me today is Megan Houston, Director of the Office of Resilience. On October 27, 2022, the Board of County Commissioners held a zoning division public hearing to consider, among other matters, potential amendments to the Unified Land Development Code to provide for electric vehicle service equipment. Board discussion of that item led to an exchange about providing electric vehicle service equipment in county-owned buildings, and county staff was directed at the time to return at a future date with recommendations for implementation to be considered by the board. Therefore, this workshop today achieves that board direction by providing an overview of the steps taken to date towards incorporating EV service equipment in county-owned buildings, as well as recommendations for the path forward. Allow us first to provide you an overview of our path to this date. In late 2019, the Office of Resilience initiated the process of designing an EV pilot program. In August 2020, the Purchasing Department, at OOR's request, issued a Request for Information, or RFI, regarding the installation, maintenance, operation, and cost for implementation of an electric vehicle service equipment program. The responses received served to finalize the framework for the EV service equipment pilot program. 5 sites were selected: the Governmental Center Parking Garage, the Convention Center Parking Garage, the Judicial Parking Garage, Vista Center, and the 4th Street Surface Parking Lot. Those were the 5 sites identified for implementation. The required funding to implement the pilot program was included in the county's approved capital improvement program, or CIP, commencing in fiscal year 21 and extending through fiscal year 23. And at the time, it provided a total appropriation of $788,000. The fiscal year 23 CIP reflects a total appropriation of $965,000, extending through fiscal year 25, based on completion of 1 site per year. So that begs the question, right? How is the pilot program being implemented? The Office of Resilience and FDO are working in close, and I should say very close, collaboration in this effort. At the beginning of the pilot program, FDO retained engineering services to assess the electrical infrastructure improvements needed at each of the 5 selected sites. Site-specific design services are then retained as a function of the annual appropriation. As a result, FDO manages the design and annual construction aspects of the pilot, while OOR procures the vendor to supply, install, maintain, and operate the EV service equipment. We're often asked as to the reasons behind the implementation approach chosen for the pilot program. The same can be summarized as follows. Market availability warrants a competitive process for vendor selection, as there are multiple companies offering EV services equipment. Electrical infrastructure was not readily available in county facilities, and the same needed to be built in the 5 sites that were chosen. There was a need to ensure all electrical upgrades met county standards. By competitively procuring vendor services, staff was able to align its needs with the contractor requirements, and last but not least, by issuing separate solicitations for each site, county staff has been able to refine contract requirements based on the lessons learned, with the ultimate goal of issuing one comprehensive solicitation that will provide for county-wide implementation if so the board decides. The current slide summarizes the status of each one of the 5 sites chosen for implementation of the pilot program. The installation of EV service equipment at the Governmental Center Parking Garage was completed in September 2021 and has been in operation since. The installation at the Convention Center Parking Garage is currently under construction and approaching completion. Design for the 2300 Vista Center project is in the early design phases and is undergoing coordination with other projects that we have in that facility, including the expansion of the same. And then the installation for the Judicial Parking Garage is to be funded in fiscal year 24, and the one for the 4th Street parking lot is to be funded in fiscal year 25. As to this later site, I should mention that we're still reassessing its viability based on space limitations that we have. In general, the county is actively pursuing federal and state funding opportunities to help pay for EV infrastructure. We're also pursuing fee-for-service models from EV vendors where users pay a usage fee for charging their vehicle. And with that, for context, I will now transition the presentation to Megan, who will provide you an overview of how the contract for the GCC Parking Garage EV service equipment operates.
Thank you, Ismi. Megan Houston, Resilience Director for Palm Beach County. The Government Center, as you all should know, when you drive to work, you pass by 2 of the chargers on the public-facing area, 4 of the chargers in employee area spaces. So we've worked with OBE Power Networks. We pay an annual service. It's basically a lease model where we pay for each of those chargers. They maintain and operate and make sure that customer access is being granted for those chargers. We then are reimbursed for our electricity costs so that we're not losing money on the electricity. And we get a very small carbon offset, so some sort of, it's a It's a fund based off of $15 for every metric ton of greenhouse gas emissions that we reduce. This is reimbursed to us quarterly, and we're just starting to see the payments now as we are kind of processing and rectifying all the invoices. The next slide shows the graph of usage. The blue bars are kilowatt hours of charge, and the darker blue is the public charger, the lighter blue is the employee charger, and it's kind of mixed bag on which stations are being used the most, right? So, and also because the public spaces, one is ADA accessible only, so you would have to have the placard and be charging your car actively to be able to use that spot. This is our very first pilot, right? So it's the usage we're still testing. We think we've learned because of the location, some were behind the gate, some were in front, that when we move to the convention center where it's going to be all public spaces, 12 spaces, and something the convention center can target as an amenity, we expect to see more usage there.
So at the end, what is our final goal? Through the pilot program, we have been trying to gather sufficient information to recommend or not a rollout of the initiative to all or select county facilities. And said recommendation will be based on a better understanding of usage, demand, location, cost, and contractual requirements. The fact that we're going through the pilot program doesn't mean we have not been taking other initiatives to trying to support EV overall. And although our current infrastructure is limited basically to the GCC and airports at the Palm Beach International Airport, we do have other efforts that are taking place. For example, in facilities development and operations, we have incorporated EV-ready spaces as part of our newly designed facilities. The idea behind that being that we will put in place the conduit and everything else that is required to support an EV operation at the time the new facilities are being designed, so to avoid costly improvements down the road if the board decides to move forward with an EV pilot. So we have incorporated that as part of our newly designed facilities. On the fleet side, we have during the past year initiated a pilot to assess the possibility of converting, of transitioning some of our fleet vehicles to electric vehicles. After much assessment as to how to proceed forward, we were able to enter into an agreement with the clerks of courts, and they have agreed to assist us in testing one vehicle, which has now been ordered. We're just awaiting delivery. Test that vehicle for over a year to gather actual information as to usage, mileage, and so on and so forth, maintenance on our fleet side as well, so that then we can make an informed recommendation as to the viability or not of converting part of our fleet. On the fire rescue side, our colleagues are working on an EV pilot that they do expect to bring forward as part of the fiscal year 24 budget. They would like to test 6 different vehicles, and they're also exploring the possibility of portable charging stations, which will add value during emergency operations. Last but not least, and as I'm sure you have heard from the Palm Trang Executive Director, he's working towards electrifying the Palm Trang fleet. He has a few milestones coming in the years ahead. In 2023, they expect to have selected a manufacturer for the EV buses. By 2025, he expects to begin delivery of the first 10, and then by year 2032, he expects to have about 25% of the diesel fleet converted to EV buses. With that as a context, and as I shared at the beginning of this presentation, we were tasked not only with providing an overview of existing policies and initiatives, but also recommendations as to the path forward. We have identified 3 additional options for consideration by the board. Option number 1 will be to continue with the pilot as it has been envisioned and funded as part of the CIP plan, which means we're going to continue to implement 1 site per year until fiscal year 25, the 5 chosen sites, and then come back to the board with our recommendation for rollout or not at a county-wide basis. Option number 2 that we have identified will entail expanding that pilot program. Since we already went ahead and included base infrastructure in our new facilities, or being designed as we speak, we have the ability to proceed forward and OOR go ahead and procure the vendor, the installation, the equipment, so on and so forth. And that will result in expanding our pilot and moving that from the current 4 or 5 sites to an additional 8. And that will allow us to gather then additional data and come back with a better informed recommendation to the board. There's also the possibility, as option number 3, of proceeding with a rollout. And if so, the board wishes, we have identified about 35 locations that could be included. We did that jointly with our libraries and parks colleagues, as well as the Office of Resilience, trying to think about availability and where the community is receiving services. So those 3 options are the ones that we're bringing to the board's consideration today. This will complete staff presentation, and we will be more than happy to address any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Marino, you're recognized.
Thank you. Interesting article in the Palm Beach Post said that 1% of all of the registered cars in the state of Florida are EV cars, and that that's about an average rate of 3.2% of all new registrations are EV cars. So I know we had a discussion last week about parking and EV chargers. So I just want you to keep that in mind, that it isn't 50% of our parking spaces are going to be EV parking spaces. But I do have a question about our fleet, and I want to make sure that our fleet does not get to the point where we are all EV, because in this case of a hurricane, and we don't have power because we need gas to, and correct me if I'm wrong, how do our generators get powered? Fuel. Yes. Okay, so if we're powering our generators with fuel, I think we should have cars that are powered by fuel also, so that there isn't the demand on the generators for the cars and the demand is for other things, the emergency things that we need it for. But other than that, I think we're on the right track we need a plan, and so I appreciate you bringing this forward to us. And I will, whatever the rest of my commissioners think is the option that they want to follow, I'm happy to support their comments. Thank you.
So if I may share with you, Commissioner, regarding the county's fleet, allow me to recognize in the audience, I have Sarah Burnham, who is our fleet director, is the colleague that leads that operation. Sarah and I spent, I'm going to say, countless meetings doing basically a review of the entire fleet, trying to identify which vehicle we could use as a test. And that reflects precisely the fact that we recognize that we cannot go for full conversion. We have certainly vehicles that need to be what they are right now and need to continue to do so into the future. But we do believe that there might be an opportunity for a portion of our fleet to be converted into EV vehicles, depending on charger availability and depending on other considerations, and that's what we are trying to test through the pilot.
Thank you. Well, a couple of things. One is I noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, that at this point, none of the charging stations that we've implemented are fully available to the public, so that they don't have to pay to get through a gate to get to them.
We do have one. We have 2, one ADA and one public at the GCC in front of the gate.
But I believe there is a parking fee that they'd have to pay to park there, right?
Right. So, right. So this would, at this point, we don't have any test sites that are just open, where we have open parking.
No.
Right. So I think that might be to understand. I see you have some places selected at Vista Center or out in that, and there's no requirement there. I would think at the airport it would be probably pretty popular too for people parking at the airport. And to Commissioner Marino's point, regarding the number or percentage of vehicles, I think if I recall that same article, the one thing they did point out was that because of the economic distribution in Palm Beach County, we have a higher percentage here than would be found than in other places. People were faster to adopt here. So, but it's clearly, obviously, going to be, the way of the future. So to get that infrastructure in place, I guess one of my constituent communities, Golden Lakes senior community, installed at their community center, they installed an EV charger, or was installed. I don't believe they paid out of pocket at all to have it installed there. Have you looked at the models where they're, other than providing access to the electrical panel, that people provide those systems based on a payback that they receive?
Yep, we have looked at those models. We collaborated with a potential partnership like that maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and there were purchasing and procurement concerns about needing to go out for bid for that kind of vendor partnership, and there were also insurance and indemnification clauses that didn't align with county standards. So that was why the team decided to go out for bid on the installation of the actual chargers.
And while I understand, you're splitting it up to try and get a sense of how different vendors handle these types of installations and so forth, it seems to me it would make sense, and you would end up with potentially a lower cost if somebody knew they were doing a lot more installations, and that they would have them, for a significant period of time to get the payback on their cost investment.
And I will argue that's certainly the end goal through the pilot. I don't want to overstep into Megan's area, but I think we have jointly learned quite a few lessons by having these initial ones competed separately, okay? And we have improved the contract that has followed, right? Taken those lessons and built a better contract afterwards, working together. So I think the end result after this pilot will be precisely a very strong contract that better serves the county and its needs, and therefore the residents.
And what about a hybrid sort of facility where you installed a covering over the parking places and solar panels on top of that to help produce some of the electricity, as opposed to paying a provider for the electricity?
Okay. That we have not explored combined. We have separate initiatives exploring the use of solar that are at a very nascent phase that will need to be further developed. But as a joint opportunity with chargers, I don't think we have explored that from FDO, neither has OOR, right?
Correct. We are looking, as the new technology is emerging, we're looking at options. But Isami's right about right now we're looking at them as separate buckets.
And then I guess the last thing, and then I'll move on to Commissioner Woodward, is my understanding too is that the Tesla system now, they've opened up their system, and so which seems to be, in terms of I guess it's a larger network, if you will. I think obviously one of the challenges is in making this conversion happen is having enough infrastructure to support, as the migration happens, to support that. And I think government can play a key role, because we have facilities and the opportunity to people park at our places for long periods of time, which is a perfect place to have chargers And that, obviously, you don't want to invest more than we require, but at some point, I think more and more, obviously, more and more vehicles are gonna be converting. So, Commissioner Woodward, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. I just had a couple of questions. One being, on the Government Center parking garage, we have 2 public, 4 employee only, includes 1 ADA. Is the ADA one of the 2 public?
Correct.
Is that a requirement that we have to have a handicap space or a disability space, whatever, for one of the 2? Because it's, I mean, that's 50% of the charging.
Correct. Yes, that's one of the things we were learning. There's not a Florida standard or even a national standard, but it's a code-specific determination, and that was something that came up in code requirements. One of those stations had to become an ADA station.
Is that our code or City of West Palm Beach or?
It's City of West Palm Beach, but that's consistent with Palm Beach County's interpretation of the law as well, as far as I know from when we last checked in with our buildings folks.
Well, as far as the usage, are we able to track how much that space gets used versus the rest of them?
Yes, we can pull that data. I'd imagine it's much less because the Venn diagram of those would be less than just the one that's available for anyone to park in and charge. I can get that data to you.
Okay. There's nothing that we can do about that then, is there? Because it's a code, or it seems a little unreasonable for something like this. We're trying to provide charging stations that are only for specific cars, and we have to cut that in half for.
We can certainly go back and reassess it. When we started with the GCC one, we went down this analysis quite in depth, honestly. And the consistent interpretation throughout, as Megan said, was that, yes, we needed to provide the ADA accommodation to make sure we're treating all sections of the community equally, right? And out of those that we had available, we had 2, we made one of them available with ADA accommodations. But more than happy to go back and make sure that that interpretation has not changed.
And I'll just add to, on the convention center, it's now one of 12 equally accessible chargers. So one of those spaces is ADA compliant, but the other 11 are available for all.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we're learning about how to structure, we learned from the first pilot, right, about how to structure and where to put those charging spaces.
Okay. And I guess my last question, are they universal charging stations? Or I saw something, there's some were Tesla, some are not. Are ours all universal?
The ones in the pilot between FDO and OOR are the universal level 2 chargers. So that's generally what people have in their house unless they have a specific Tesla charger.
Mm-hmm.
There were some earlier installation projects with airports where that was where the Tesla chargers have been installed.
Okay. And as far as data collection, are there similar locations that we could also get data from? I mean, the airport would not necessarily be as similar because people would be longer term parking, I would think, but are there other facilities or some of the municipalities that have charging stations that we could also pull this information?
Yes, that's something we can ask our colleagues at the municipalities on usage and see if they've been pulling that information. I'm sure they have. It's very easy to track, so we can look to that and see. That's a great point. What have they learned?
Right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marino?
Thank you. On option 3, where it shows $200,000 per site, and you give us 35 sites, that's a cost of $7 million. Option 2 is a cost of $1.6 million. These are in today's dollars.
That is correct.
Do we have a cost of what a stub out is versus the whole doing the entire thing where you have the charger? This way, if there does come a time where we actually see that there is a need, we put the facility in at that point, but we have the stub out already done, so we don't have to do any infrastructure?
So the cost you have included and that we have been using as a reference is basically to install all the electrical infrastructure. What we have been doing as part of the design process is putting in place the conduits, okay? And that's minimal cost, and that's why I kept using that 200,000 as a point of reference. What we're saving in the long term is not having to cut through, you know, newly built slab, right? And all the construction and remobilization of a new contractor, because conduit is going to be in place, panel and capacity is going to be in place, but we still need to install the infrastructure. And that's why we have the estimate saying if we're going to add that as part of the construction process, we will still have an expense. Timing is also important, and I'm going to give you an example. Supervisor of elections is under construction right now. So if we can add that project now, where we already have the EV ready space, I can save in mobilization and all the additional costs. If we move forward at the time of construction rather than later on, we save those costs, and I think that's why timing of this item is relevant.
So what you're saying then is the $200,000 cost is just for the infrastructure. It's not for the actual charger itself.
That is correct.
Who pays for the charger when in fact it gets installed?
We manage, the Resilience Office manages the vendor contract for the charging equipment. And so far, it's been a lease or fee-for-service type model where we don't own the equipment, but we pay somebody else to install that and maintain it.
And then they give us some rebate as somebody uses it? Does it offset our cost?
We're looking at two different models. The government center, we're just getting electricity and a small tonnage per metric ton savings. So it's a lower cost to lease the equipment, but a lower payback. In the convention center, we are taking those usage fees so we can set the price and then we can collect that revenue to help. But we're looking to see if that will better offset our costs.
So the $7 million is not immediate because we're not doing 35 projects all at once. But again, this is in today's dollars. So if a project is 10 years from now that we start doing it, it's going to be a different fee.
It will depend on how the board wants us to proceed. So if we want to go for, if the board decides to go for the 35 sites, those are existing facilities. Those are facilities that are already in place. We will go in and proceed with the installation at the pace that the board directs us to, right?
I apologize. I see that where it says select existing facilities. Thank you. So we actually could do all options because we would be, option 3 is existing, option 2 is newly constructed, and option
correct.
1 is just continuing what we're doing.
That is correct.
So we could possibly be looking at $8.6 million plus continuing what we're doing.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
So I can't, it doesn't make sense to me to build out the supervisor of elections facility without having at least the conduit in place. I mean,
That is already included.
Oh, it is in
We
there.
did that. We,
Gotcha.
FDO took that step forward for every new design. That's a directive within facilities development that has been issued so that new facilities have the conduit in place, right? And it's a minimal expense when you compare it to what it will cost to cut slabs and install everything then back.
Right. And then following up on Commissioner Woodward's questioning on the accessibility space as well as the charging space together. So if somebody had a placard only and a gas-powered vehicle, could they park at that charging station?
No, there's that space has the EV designation, so there is a state statute that requires only EV cars capable of using that charger to park in that space.
I think her questioning along the lines of getting some understanding of how much that's utilized, because and clearly, obviously, you all have learned that it doesn't make sense to put in two charging spaces if you're going to have to give one up that potentially may not be used for anything at any point till things change quite a bit more. So, I'm, I think, I mean, there is a lack of really a lack of knowledge on these. I like the idea of going to the other municipalities. I'd also check with some of the private parking. I mean, I go to some of the, where was I? Down by Meisner in Boca. I mean, and they have charging stations in their one of the nearby plazas. I mean, they were full. And I don't know if it was just the time of the day I was there, but they seem to be very popular, at least while I've been around there. Every time I've been there, they've always had cars there. I don't know what some of the other, I don't know what the mall, the outlet mall is like, or, and then the other question I would have is, I mean, are there other governments that are moving forward, and what sort of, are we behind, in front?
Sure, we connect with our Florida Sustainability Directors Network, looking at, Florida municipalities generally with sustainability or resiliency offices. So some are pursuing parking mandates. 5% of spaces have to have EV charging, EV chargers. Coral Gables is probably maybe out front with certain facilities having the actual chargers, and then a higher percentage having the infrastructure, and then an even higher percentage having the conduit. Others are focused more on their facility operations. Same thing that we're trying to do is test out how to put the EV charging infrastructure on site and see how that does. So I think there is a lot of activity within the spaces that have, within the governments that have resiliency and sustainability goals.
So, and I guess, and the other thing is, I mean, obviously people are able to do this as a way of creating an income stream. How come we're not able to come up with that same model?
The model that we have tested is not an ownership model, so that is, when we were rolling it out, we were thinking about how we could put the responsibility in that third party, because it is a new technology. So both of those, phase 1 and phase 2, the government center and then the convention center, have been that leased structure. Any kind of ownership model would have to be a broader discussion.
Okay. Yeah, we have 3 options in front of us. Oh, Virginia, you recognize? I'm sorry.
I think
Ms.
I,
Baker?
That is a different philosophy than the road we were going down. If that is another option that this board would like us to explore, we could definitely explore it. We're always looking for ways to offset the impact. So we could definitely explore it depending on what direction you give. That is something we can come back to the board on and get, further direction.
Well, it seems like we're already sort of moving down option 2 as we sit here, so I would be comfortable moving forward with that kind of direction, and like to have you come back, because I mean, there's whole business models being set up around charging or recharging of electric vehicles, and I think we need to sort of figure out how they're able to do it, and figure out if we can. And I would think we should be able to do the same, so.
Yeah, I know City Place early on did, I want to say Tesla, put theirs in, and, that revenue is then generated. Not quite sure how it's split between, the city or related and those individuals, but we could definitely do some research, and as we bring this back to the board in more detail, we can include those particular options.
And quite frankly, there's a lot of federal funding available for expanding this right now. So if we came up with an expansion program to put in the infrastructure that was, and whether it was privately available for our own fleets or publicly available, the Department of Energy is, and I mean, while we were up in Washington, there was there was a lot of talk, I'm not in those committees, but I saw the brochures, and there was a lot of talk about that and that opportunity.
I've been trying to read up on all the changes, so it is a lot out there to be explored. We, you know, we were moving down one path, but we can definitely pivot and make sure we're researching all of it and bring it back to the board.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Marino, are you still lit, or are you?
I am.
Okay.
I guess my question on option 3 would be, do we actually have a time frame of when these projects are in the works? Because I'm good with option 1, option 2. Option 3, $7 million, I guess I'd like to know when this would be applicable.
It will be dependent on board direction, meaning to say those are facilities that already exist. We will need to move forward with design and construction. Design has not started, different to the pilot where we already did an assessment and we have design ongoing for those that have been funded. Okay, with option 2, you already have design included, so that's a step ahead.
I'm good with that. Just an observation about the Gardens Mall in Palm Beach Gardens. They went in afterwards and put charging stations where they had their light poles. So that's how they were able to source the power. And they, you know, once they added Tesla as one of their storefronts, then they actually did specific Tesla charging stations for Tesla cars, but then they also have EV cars. And, you know, sometimes EV cars are parked in there and they're not charging. Now, that's another issue, too. What is the mandate about if you take up that space, what are you doing? Are you just parking there because it's closer to the front of the building? Or, you know, are you parking there and are you charging? So that's another thing to look at also. Thank you.
Done? All right. What's that? No, we don't. They're just looking for direction. So unless you have other direction you want to give staff. I'm looking down the road. I don't see anybody. All right. I mean, I think, you know, I think if we can find a model that is that's self-funding or pretty much self-funding, I think it would give us the opportunity to really move forward much faster. Okay. Anything else? Nothing, anything for the good of the order? Seeing, okay, we have some comments? Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for your presentation this afternoon. Very much appreciated. And we can have Commissioner comments. Do you have any comments, Administrator Baker? Okay. So we'll have Commissioner Barnett.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of Commissioner Mike Barnard, I was asked to request permission for an off-site proclamation for the 75th Charter Day of the West Palm Beach Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
We have a motion by Commissioner Barnett, a second by Commissioner Marino. All in favor, all opposed, that motion carries 4-0. All right. Anything else, sir?
No, sir.
All right. Commissioner Woodward, you're recognized.
Yes, I would like to make an appointment. Do I need to make a motion to? Yes, I'd like to make an appointment to the Fair Housing and Equal Employment Board for Christina Escalante.
We have a motion by Commissioner Woodward for appointment and second by Commissioner Marino. All in favor, all opposed, that motion carries 4-0.
Okay. And thank you for all the workshops today. Very informative.
Thank you. Commissioner Marino, you're recognized.
Thank you. You all may have seen it come out in the Palm Beach Post today that University of Florida is putting a hold on their discussions about moving here. But I also find it very interesting that they are trying to replicate the same project that they had here up in Jacksonville. So I just find it a little interesting that both of those things seem to hit the paper on the same day. So I'm just taking a breather, and I just wanted to put that out there. And I have no comments other than to say the Honda Classic was fabulous. For all of you that attended, we did a really good final tournament with the Honda moniker on it, had a playoff, had a very popular winner, a gentleman who was very humble. Just 42 years Honda has been involved, over $61 million to charity, which is, I think, the biggest takeaway for all of us. Probably $6 million again this year that will be given back to our community. So I just wanted to give a thank you to probably one of my last days wearing my Honda Classic lanyard. But it was a wonderful event. I know that several of our other commissioners and staff were out there, and thank you all for being there.
Thank you, Commissioner. And then I guess my comments, I was able to join a group of folks, including some county staff, going up to Montgomery, Alabama, to deliver soil from the near the location where we believe that Samuel Nelson was lynched in west of Delray Beach in Palm Beach County back in the 20s. I have to say it was a very moving event to deliver the soil, and then to have an opportunity to tour the Equal Justice Initiative Museum in Montgomery that really shines a very bright spotlight on some of the challenges we've had in this country as it relates to people of color. And the opportunity to have been a part of both the delivery of the soil and to visit the museum is something I will never forget. It has a very big impact on me. And then lastly, letting folks know again on this Thursday in the South County Civic Center, we are having a roundtable or a town hall hosted by Michael Williams to speak about anti-Semitism and hate, and public is invited and welcome to attend. So with that, that's the only things I have, and seeing nothing else, well, this meeting is adjourned.